It was a Tuesday evening when the text popped up, just 3 chilling words. We all agreed. At first I stared at them, confused, hoping maybe I'd misread, but deep down, that pit in my stomach told me something was very wrong. Then, almost like a cold punch, another message arrived from my mom. We all agreed, you're not welcome at the wedding. No exclamation, no question mark, just that clipped, smug dash she always used when she wanted to sound official. It was like a smirk, but in text form. That message hit me harder than I ever imagined. The wedding was supposed to be a celebration, a family coming together. I had poured months of my time, money, and energy into planning it, calming the drama, booking every vendor, while my sister Emma barely lifted a finger. Yet here I was, being told I wasn't even invited. That moment was a breaking point where love and loyalty twisted into betrayal, and where the story truly began. I stared at that message over and over, hoping maybe the words would shift if I blinked hard enough, but they never did. It was about my sister's wedding, the very wedding I helped fund and plan, the one where I spent countless hours calming down drama, soothing tears, and booking every single vendor because Sarah was too overwhelmed to handle it. The same Sarah who just 2 weeks ago called me her emotional rock while I wired her another $1,500 for those ridiculous centerpieces that looked like Pinterest exploded on a florist. My name's Kyle, I'm 31 years old, and until that message hit my phone, I truly believed I was doing something right, being the glue holding a family together that always seemed one missed call away from breaking apart. But now, I was left wondering what being the glue really meant if I wasn't even welcome at the table. I'm not wealthy by any means, but I've worked long and hard to save up. I lived simply, stayed single, and watched others around me spend and borrow recklessly. For years, I believed I was just the lucky, responsible one, while they were the unlucky spendthrifts. But I learned the hard way. Being the responsible family member just turns you into an ATM with no limits. The wedding was set for next Saturday, an over-the-top beachside event with this ridiculous ivory and gold theme my sister insisted was classy, but honestly looked more like a royal baby shower. I paid for half the venue deposit, booked the flights, and even reserved the honeymoon suite in Cabo under my name, because my mom's credit wasn't good enough. Then, out of nowhere, I wasn't welcome anymore. I didn't even reply to that message. Instead, I opened my laptop and quietly canceled the 2 round-trip business class tickets I'd booked. Watching that $3,800 refund hit my account was strangely satisfying. Then I transferred $16,500 back from my savings, the exact amount I'd wired to my mom last month for wedding overflow expenses. I didn't say a word. No anger, no tears, just a deep calm, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally let it out. The first call came at exactly 8:17 p.m. It was my sister. I let it ring. Then came my cousin's call, my uncle's, and finally my mom's. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I turned off all notifications, reheated some leftovers, and tried to focus on a documentary that barely held my attention. By the next morning, I had 23 missed calls and dozens of voicemails. But there was one message that made my hand go cold. It was simple, just 2 words, please call. It was my dad who stopped me from sinking deeper into silence. Dad is a quiet man, the type who'd rather tinker with a busted coffee maker than dive headfirst into family drama. When I was a kid, I thought he didn't care. But growing up, I realized that wasn't true. He just chose his battles carefully. And for him to step into this fight, I knew something was seriously wrong. Before I could even process what was happening, his words started replaying in my head like a broken record, even though I hadn't pressed play on any voicemail. I imagined Sarah's whiny voice, Mom's theatrical sobs, and maybe a guilt-tripped message from an aunt who hadn't texted me in years. I wanted to delete them all. I really did. But Dad's message lingered. This all didn't come out of nowhere. It started small. Little comments, sideways jokes. Last Christmas, Mom said, "Well, at least Sarah will give us grandkids. Not everyone can say that." At the time, I laughed it off. I never wanted kids, and I was fine with that. But that remark stung in a way I wouldn't admit. Then there was Sarah's engagement dinner. I noticed I wasn't sitting at the main table. To keep things even, Mom said her younger cousin's boyfriend, who'd only been around for 3 months, was seated next to the groom. I swallowed that one too. Like always, they were little paper cuts, never big enough to cause a confrontation, until suddenly they were. After Sarah got engaged, everything turned into an emergency. Mom panicked over cake samples, Sarah melted down about bridesmaid dresses, and I was expected to cover whatever the groom's family didn't. I did. Because I thought helping was how I proved I belonged. I thought showing up with my wallet meant I mattered. But it never earned me a seat at the table. It just made me the unpaid intern in their fantasy wedding, and now I wasn't even invited. That morning, I sat on the edge of my bed, laptop open, the canceled flight confirmation glowing like a quiet middle finger. I scrolled through the missed calls, each name ringing louder than the last. Then I saw the message from Dad. Just 6 words. "You need to see this now." My stomach dropped. I stared at that message, my thumb hovering over the screen. 6 words, but weighted with something heavier than guilt. Dad's always been a man of few words, but every one of them was measured. Not dramatic like Mom, not manipulative like Sarah, and definitely not the kind to panic. So if he said I needed to see something, it wasn't going to be a tearful voicemail or a passive-aggressive family group chat post. I called him. He answered before the second ring. Kyle, his voice was low. "You got a minute?" My mouth went dry. "Yeah," I said. "What's going on?" There was a pause. I heard muffled sounds of a television in the background. Then it clicked off. "I didn't know they were going to do this," Dad said. "Your mom and your sister, I just found out this morning. They locked down the seating chart and made the announcement in the family group chat." "I'm not even in the group chat," I muttered more to myself. "I know," he replied quietly. "That's part of it." Another pause. "Kyle," he said, "they told everyone you chose not to come." That hit me harder than I expected. I blinked, trying to make sense of it. "What?" "They said you were pulling one of your loner stunts, that you got upset over something minor and backed out. Sarah told everyone you were dramatic and that you didn't want to be there." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "So they kicked me out, and made it my decision." "Worse," Dad said, "your mom said you threatened to ruin the wedding if you came." That knocked the breath right out of me. "Gee, what?" I gasped. Dad sighed like he hated being the bearer of bad news. "She told Sarah's in-laws you were emotionally unstable, bitter about being single, jealous of your sister's happy ending, said you were making everything about you like usual." "Like usual," my voice cracked. I had to stand up because my apartment suddenly felt too small. "I know, son," Dad said quickly. "I know that's not who you are. I've watched you pick up every piece they dropped," he added. "You handled that entire engagement party and no one thanked you. You paid off Mom's second credit card last summer without a word. You showed up every time they didn't, but they don't see that. Or maybe they do, and it scares them." I leaned against the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. "So this whole thing, the exile, it was a setup to make me the bad guy." Dad hesitated, exhaled. "It's worse than that. They already started telling people you refused to fund the honeymoon out of spite." That's when something inside me changed. Something broke, but not the way I thought. I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't even angry. I felt detached, cold, like I was watching a rerun of a show I used to care about, but now I knew every plot twist. "They took the money," I said flatly. "Dad," I added, $6,500 were wired to Mom's account for the honeymoon. I canceled the flights last night. The refunds are already back in my account." He was silent, then softly said, "Good." It was the first time in years that my father openly supported one of my decisions. He wasn't a man of grand gestures, but that one word meant everything. Then he added, "There's something else. I wasn't going to tell you, but I think you need to see it." I heard rustling, then the ping of a message. I opened my phone. It was a screenshot of a family group chat. Mom, Sarah, and a few others. My name was mentioned. Mom texted, "Don't worry about Kyle, he's just sensitive because no one's ever loved him enough to marry him. I'll talk to him after the wedding once he realizes how childish he's being." Sarah wrote, "He's a ghost, let him fade, just need to make sure he doesn't embarrass us." And Cheryl said, "So, we're agreed, no +1 for him even if he begs." Mom replied, "Exactly. No seat, no speech, no drama. He'll get over it, he always does." I read the messages twice, then a third time. And I deleted them not out of denial, but because I didn't need to see them again. I'd always been an outsider in my own family. The helper, the fixer, the invisible glue. But glue doesn't get a seat at the table. It just holds everything else together while it cracks. That evening, I sat down with a black notebook, not to write angry messages or prepare for confrontation, but to list every system I had control over, every account, every automatic payment, every shared subscription that carried their names but relied on my money. They wanted me to fade away quietly, to disappear without a trace, but they'd forgotten one crucial fact. I was the one holding the strings. I started with the joint Costco membership I shared with Mom canceled. Then came the Hulu, Netflix, and Disney Plus family accounts. I removed their profiles one by one. The auto payments I'd quietly been making on Sarah's student loan, disabled. Every financial tether I had to them I cut. But the best part? The wedding venue deposit was still under my name. Technically, I was the primary contract holder. They never repaid me for that check I wrote to lock in the date, something I'd been meaning to sort out later. But now, it shot to the top of my list. As I stared at the contract, hovering over the cancel reservation button, a smile spread across my face. The first genuine smile I'd had in weeks. If they thought I was dramatic before, they hadn't seen anything yet. By the next morning, my silence had them spiraling out of control. The voicemails switched from passive-aggressive digs to desperate pleas. Sarah's tone shifted with every message. At first annoyed, then pleading, she begged, "Kyle, can we talk? I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. Mom didn't mean it that way." I didn't respond. Instead, I listened with my arms crossed, each new message only confirming what I already knew. They were trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, but it was far too late for that. I wasn't looking for revenge for ego's sake. This wasn't about lashing out. It was about letting go and making sure they felt it. That afternoon, I got serious. I opened that notebook again and meticulously wrote down every account, every bill, every password-protected subscription attached to my name. I wasn't dramatic, I was thorough. The irony was that they called me the cold one, the robot, the person who didn't feel things like the rest of them. They were right, in a way. I didn't blow up, I didn't scream. I calculated and acted. Mom's phone plan, which I'd been paying for since she was laid off back in 2019, suspended. She wouldn't even notice until she tried to call during her hair trial on Friday. Sarah's Venmo, which was connected to my bank as a backup card after she overdrafted multiple times in college and never removed it, unlinked. And just for fun, I reported suspicious charges on my account. Fraud protection is a beautiful thing. By Thursday morning, I had an email from the wedding venue. A polite but firm confirmation. Your cancellation request has been received. Per the contract, your deposit will be forfeited unless a replacement booking is secured. I smiled. Let them explain that to the 118 guests flying in for a Saturday ceremony that no longer had a legal reservation. Around noon, my cousin Mark called. He's the only family member who ever treated me like a person, not a tool. His voice was tired as he asked, "Kyle, what's happening?" I didn't lie. I'm done funding a family that sees me as a wallet with legs. He sighed. They're freaking out. Good, Sarah's having a meltdown, saying you're ruining her marriage. I gave a dry laugh. If canceling a flight and freezing the honeymoon fund ruins a marriage, maybe it wasn't built to last. He didn't argue. I wish you'd told me sooner. I always knew they leaned on you too much. That night, I logged into my dad's old Dropbox account, the one we'd used years ago when I helped digitize family records. Inside was a goldmine. Scanned receipts, emails, even the original invoice from the engagement party I paid for, but Mom conveniently forgot about. I created a new Google Drive folder, titled it Contributions from Kyle Nobody Wanted. Then I uploaded every document, every receipt, every email, and copied the link. I sent it to every family member in the group chat. I didn't write a caption. I didn't need to. Less than 5 minutes later, I was kicked out of the family chat. Perfect. But the real twist came Friday morning, the day before the wedding. I was sipping coffee, enjoying the quiet, when I got an email from the groom's mother, Linda. We'd met once before. She was poised, by the book, the kind of woman who kept her silverware aligned and said, "Darling," instead of "sweetie." Her message was short, but it rattled me more than any voicemail. Subject: concern about the wedding. Hi, Kyle. Wanted to reach out directly. I've heard bits and pieces about what's going on, and quite frankly, I'm alarmed. If you have a moment, could we speak? I feel like I'm missing some very important information. Best. Linda. That was when it hit me that this wasn't just family gossip anymore. This was a thread unraveling from both ends. I called her. She answered immediately. "Thank you for calling," she said, formal but with an edge of concern. "I don't mean to overstep, but my son just informed me the venue may have been canceled." "It was," I said plainly. "I paid the deposit. It's under my name." She was silent for a moment. "That's not what we were told." Another pause. "Kyle, I don't know what's been said, but I was told you declined to come, that you backed out because you were bitter." I let the silence hang. Then I asked, do bitter people usually pay for floral arrangements, the wedding cake, the DJ, and half the venue? Linda inhaled sharply. "I was unaware of any of that." "Of course you were," I said flatly. "They needed someone to blame when I pulled out, and when I stopped funding it, they made sure to do what they always do. Point the finger at me." Her voice lowered. "I understand now why you've distanced yourself," she said. "I would have too." But then she said something that shook me to my core. "Kyle, there's something else you should know. Sarah opened a joint credit card with your mom last week, and she used your name on the application." I froze. "What?" "They claimed you co-signed," she continued. "My husband caught it when we reviewed the final expenses. He recognized your name on the paperwork." That was the moment everything changed. I wasn't just the family ATM anymore, I was the target. I sat there, coffee cold in my hand, the room closing in around me as Linda's words echoed over and over in my mind. They claimed I co-signed a credit card I never applied for. A card Sarah opened with forged signatures, using my personal info from who knows where. I didn't feel rage or sadness anymore, I felt clarity. All these years, I'd been the fallback plan, the fixer, the silent financier. But this was no desperation. It was entitlement soaked in fraud. It was theft. And it was the final straw. That evening, I drove to my dad's place. He was waiting for me on the porch with 2 beers in hand, that silent, weathered look on his face, the kind he always wore when things got heavy. "You okay?" he asked as I sat down beside him. I nodded slowly. Getting there. We didn't need to say much. The silence spoke for us. He handed me a beer and we just sat there, watching the sun dip below the trees, the kind of peaceful moment I hadn't had in a long time. Eventually, he said something that meant more than I ever could have expected. "You did the right thing." And just like that, everything I'd been carrying, the weight of the lies, the anger, the heartbreak, started to melt away. The fallout came fast. First, the phone calls started. My aunts, my cousins, and even Uncle Greg, who hadn't spoken to me since 2016. They all wanted to know what had really happened, why the wedding was off, and why Sarah had posted that cryptic Instagram story about being betrayed by blood. I didn't respond to a single one of them. Instead, I let their calls go to voicemail and let the texts sit unread. I wasn't interested in apologies or guilt trips, not anymore. I was done being their emotional janitor, done cleaning up their messes and carrying the burden of their expectations. They couldn't see me for who I was, and at that moment, I didn't care if they ever did. As for the wedding, it never happened. With the venue canceled and no backup secured, they scrambled to throw together a backyard ceremony. But it wasn't enough. Guests turned around, mid-flight, confused and angry. The groom's family, having learned about the forged credit card, immediately called the whole thing off. Apparently, financial fraud before the vows isn't exactly a great look. Sarah naturally took to her social media. A whole spree of cryptic stories, Bible verses, and passive-aggressive quotes about snakes in the grass and family who turn their back on you. I didn't flinch. I didn't respond. I just watched her and I felt a kind of peace settle over me. Because here's the thing. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a dramatic confrontation. It's not yelling or exposing someone in front of a crowd. Sometimes it's just clarity. It's quietly dismantling the system that took you for granted. It's walking away while the whole rotten house collapses behind you. About a week later, I received a final message from my mom. "You've made your point. We're all hurting. You didn't have to go this far." I didn't respond. Instead, I made one last decision that was mine and mine alone. I changed my number. I took a few days off work and booked a solo trip, just me and my laptop, heading to the same resort Sarah had booked for her honeymoon. Funny thing about being the one who booked everything under your name, you know the cancellation policies. I changed the dates, upgraded the suite, took her champagne package and added it to my reservation. And I sat there, on that balcony, drinking in hand, waves rolling beneath me. I finally let myself breathe. I thought about how long I had waited for someone, anyone, to see me. But what I hadn't realized was that I had been waiting to see myself. Not the version they needed me to be, not the fixer, not the bank account. Just me, Kyle, 31 years old, free, and finally done trying to earn love I never owed them in the first place. I don't know if they'll ever really understand what they lost, but I do, and I'm not giving it back. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt like the one who's always giving but never getting, then you're not alone. We all have our breaking points, and sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is walk away from what holds us back. Even when it's family, it's never too late to reclaim your peace, your boundaries, and your own life. If you're ready for more stories about real people taking back their power and embracing their truth, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on the bell notifications so you never miss a moment of transformation. Thanks for watching. You've just taken one step toward understanding your own journey. Don't stop now. See you in the next video. You're stronger than you think.